Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of It's No Secret Dr. T. With me today is Alex Fries, and he is a marketing strategist. He is a frequent speaker and consultant in the areas of marketing, sales, business, automation. He is one smart cookie. So, Alex, how are you doing today?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm so glad to have you on here. We met 5 years ago
Yeah, something like that.
at Business Black Ops in Arizona, and you're one of the smartest people I've met. I don't know if people tell you that all the time, but you know when you meet somebody and you know that they think differently to everybody else. Has anyone said that to you before? As a compliment?
Some people have, and I think sometimes it's not a compliment, but I just take it as one anyway.
Oh, and so you should.
So that's flattering. Thank you.
No, that's okay. And also, when I asked for your bio, you said you authored a book called The Student Entrepreneur's Guide to Building a Profitable Business, and that was at High Point University. So when you were, what did you actually study when you were at university? I take it was marketing?
It wasn't marketing. It was business administration with a concentration on entrepreneurship, which they've just turned into an actual study in entrepreneurship. But it was a bunch of different classes on thinking like an entrepreneur and understanding how business works on a different level from the traditional corporate setting, which was really interesting.
Yeah, so obviously way back in when you were at university, you already knew that the whole marketing, the area of marketing was something you were really interested in. I actually can't see you just sitting back doing administration.
That sounds so boring.
It does, doesn't it?
It's so terrible. But not to the people who do that. They're very important in every business. But I always knew that I wanted to be in marketing. I started out copywriting at a very early age, and that kind of drove my interest in marketing overall. And when I was in school, that book kind of came about because I was actually running a marketing consulting business and a publishing business doing consumer credit information was that's a better way to say this. Consumer publishing or consumer credit information publishing. So like information products on consumer credit.
Were you doing this while you were at university?
Mm-hmm, so both while I was there.
Okay.
And that book, I was working with a entrepreneurship center that is now fully formed at High Point University, where I went to school. And they decided, hey, there's all of these other students that are starting businesses that have concepts for businesses or have already started it just like I had and are actually running them while they're in school. And there was a lot of things that we needed to address from the school because the school didn't want to be liable for people running businesses on campus and bringing, their clients or their prospects onto campus to meet with them.
Yeah.
And from an insurance standpoint, there was all of that stuff. So the school really wanted it, but I wanted to address it from the student perspective as well. There are all these challenges that you have while going to classes and running a business. And so that's kind of what that book addressed. It's not available anywhere. It's just for High Point University students, but they still give it, as far as I know, to all of their entrepreneurship students and the students in the Center for Entrepreneurship.
When I was at university, the thought of actually having a business on the side of what I was already doing, I was playing football and chasing girls. So when I hear people that were at university and they actually had a side business that they were doing, I'm really impressed. I don't know if it's something that happens a lot more now, like going back 30 years ago when I was at university, there was no internet. If somebody said the word entrepreneur, I couldn't spell it, let alone know what it was. Yeah, we went to uni and did podiatry. You did dentistry. You went and got a business degree. You were sort of put into a box. There was no thinking outside the box.
I think schools, at least in the US and I think other places, are starting to become a lot more accepting of that. And they're opening up entrepreneurship centers, being very encouraging to students to start businesses while still in school, or at least come up with the ideas for their business. I took a class, one of the first entrepreneurship classes I took was called just ideation and creation.
Yeah.
And that was the whole class, was just to come up with new ideas to test or to take an existing idea and, take a new angle on it and see how you could improve that idea. So is the whole purpose of those classes, and this is why I was drawn into that area in university, was just to get me to think in a different way and to look at a problem and try to come up with the solution for it.
Okay, so when I introduced you as a marketing strategist. So if you said that to somebody, I'm a marketing strategist, how do you define what a marketing strategist is?
I guess you could do it a couple of different ways, but the way I like to think about it is developing strategies and processes to enhance the marketing of a business. So a lot of businesses, unfortunately, look at marketing as a cost center when it really doesn't need to be. It can actually be a driver of revenue and a driver of profit. And so how do you create processes within a marketing department, if you have one, or if it's just one person, or if you're doing the marketing yourself? How do you create a system and a strategy around that drives profit for the business and drives more business? And that's really how I would define it. But I think it's probably open up to interpretation of what strategy really means to some people.
I like it when something's open for interpretation. I love all the interpretations that people make. But I think that was a really important point you made, where some people look at marketing as an expense to their business. And when business is a little bit slow, one of the first things they cut is their marketing, which is dumb.
Yeah, it's one of the worst things you can do, because everything, it's like a bullwhip. Everything after that just slows down and you get yourself into a bigger hole.
So when we, this year at Business Black Ops, you got up and did a pretty damn good talk on unique selling proposition. But prior to that, we were talking about knowing your ideal patient, customer, client avatar. Can we just talk about that for a little bit? Like why people are scared to actually have an ideal client?
Yeah, they think they need to sell and market to everybody. And that's never the case. I've never gone into a business where they are coming out the other end better by selling or trying to sell to everybody than if they actually broke it down and figured out who are my best clients and who are my best patients. It's sort of, you gave a presentation on niching down your business,
yeah, which
I think is another episode of the podcast that I just listened to. Or re-listen to it, because I got to listen to it live.
Yeah, and you could hear you could hear people cheering in the background. You're probably one of those people cheering in the background, maybe.
I think so. It was a great presentation, and I kind of think of it like that. So instead of niching down your business, you're sort of niching down who you're selling to and who you're marketing to, and it's for a new business that seems like a very daunting task, because you're very money hungry. You're trying to just bring cash flow in the door.
Yeah.
And to say no to somebody, it seems horrible. But when you really think about what your ideal client is and what your ideal client isn't, a lot of times if you sell to somebody who is not your ideal client, it ends up costing more money on the back end. Your staff, if you have staff, is less happy. If you're the person servicing that client, you're less happy because that client's harder to deal with. You might be spending more time with them, which actually ends up costing more money. So there's a series of things that happen that a lot of business owners don't think about by selling to people who don't meet their ideal client. It's also daunting because most business owners don't know how to figure out who that ideal client is. They don't know where to find them, or all of the different things that go into what we call the avatar, which is, we could spend a whole episode just on that. But yeah. It's really important for us. I work for a company called Credit Suite, and we help business owners get capital. And so there's many businesses out there that need money to grow, or to build out their marketing, or to buy advertising, whatever it might be. But there's very specific businesses that we help more successfully than other businesses. That's not to say that we still can't send them somewhere else where they can get money, or we can't refer them to somebody. It's just that they're not the best person for us to help they're not going to be the most successful for us, and we're not going to be the most successful at helping them.
It makes perfect sense. I remember when I had my podiatry clinic and a particular patient came in who was very well dressed, educated, and they were they were like my ideal patient. And I remember them coming into the clinic and we'd spoken about podiatry. And I said, have you been anywhere before? They said, well, yeah, actually I went to this other podiatry clinic. And they said, we went there because it was the closest podiatry clinic. So the other podiatry clinic treated everybody. I said, well, how come you left? And they went, well, the podiatrist was nice enough. They said, and the location was really good. But when I was sitting in the reception area, I just felt this is not where I belong. And I said, well, why? And they said, well, there were people sitting in there that had no teeth. There were people that were bare feet, scruffy looking. So because that podiatry clinic was catering for everybody, this ideal patient just went, yeah, this doesn't suit me. I want to find somewhere that is talking to me. So then they came to our podiatry clinic and we kept them. Mm-hmm. So and I think that's the importance of knowing who your ideal patient, client, or customer is.
Yeah, it improves retention. It lowers your marketing costs. There's a lot of benefits to it.
Yeah, and it doesn't scare people. Well, I think it, I go, like in my example, when I did my presentation, was you can just talk their language. You're only talking to one audience. You're not trying to talk to multiple audiences at the same time.
Knowing your customer and client avatar or patient avatar is one of the most important places to, I think, start. It's one of the most important things to readdress throughout your business. So when I was consulting, I would work with my clients probably once every 6 months or so to just reevaluate who we're selling to and who we're marketing to, and also who we don't want. We would create almost like an anti-avatar.
Oh, the anti-avatar. I like that.
It's like, where do these people hang out? And let's not go there.
It's like putting a big cross up to keep vampires away.
Exactly. But it does have it interweaves into every aspect of the business, and a lot of people don't realize that, especially when they're first starting out.
But if people have started a business and they're going, damn it, I didn't do that. I should have been more focused on who my ideal person was going to be, or client, patient, customer. It's not too late to actually shift and start focusing on the person that you want, and you slowly weed the other people out.
Yeah, it's never too late to start.
Yeah,
we're at Credit Suite, we're growing quite rapidly, and we do that exercise pretty much every 6 months. And sometimes we prove ourselves right and our avatar hasn't changed, but sometimes we get a little off track with our marketing, and it's a good readjustment for us. So no matter where you are in the business, it's always a good time to readdress who your avatar is.
So you just say every 6 months you go back and you have a look at your avatar, or do you go back and look at all the marketing that you're doing and ask yourself, are we talking to our avatar, or have we got a little bit astray? Have we gone off track a little bit?
Both. So we look at who is buying the most and who's being most successful with our products.
Yeah.
And who's a repeat buyer, just looking at frequency and amount. And then taking that data and going back and looking at, is this who we're marketing to or actively marketing to? Because things do shift. Certain avatars might be on Facebook 1 month or for, a quarter or a couple quarters, and then move off of Facebook. And that's where it's important to go back and look at how you're marketing to them and the language that they're responding to, and understanding what marketing pieces are working to attract the avatar that you want to be working with. And that can change quite rapidly, especially if you're doing a lot of digital ads and digital marketing. That changes so quickly, and it's important to just stay up on things that are working for you. If something's working, obviously don't stop doing that.
Yeah.
But address, is it attracting the right person? Is this thing that was working still attracting the person that was getting us to where we need it to be?
Okay. Do you think some people will do a marketing campaign, whether it's digital or old school, could still be a newspaper ad, for example, and they get really good results with it, but then they stop reevaluating, and they're 2 years later they're saying the same message in the same place, and they're not even looking to see whether they're getting the same traction.
Yeah, I see that all the time. I'm guilty of it myself.
I had a newspaper ad. I had a newspaper ad that I ran for over 20 years, and I used to treat it. I used to call it my Black Caviar ad, because Black Caviar was a racehorse here in Australia that had won 21 races in a row. I said, but even though Black Caviar was a champion, it still had to have a spell every now and then. You had to give it a break. So I would run this ad. Every time we ran it, it would go really well. I'd keep track of the numbers, and as soon as I noticed it started to dip, I'd pull it out, give it a spell. 6 weeks later, bring it back in again. Bang, it would jump back up again. And that was an old school newspaper, and it still worked really well. So I would never rule out old school stuff sometimes.
No, and in fact, sometimes it works better than digital, but it's the same concept we use for digital ads. I do about $60,000 a month, dollars a month on digital ad spend.
$60,000 a month.
Yep. And which isn't, compared to some people, that's not giant, but it's not tiny.
No. Wow.
Okay. But it's the same concept that we use. We look to see if a particular creative or copy combination is working. And then as it starts dipping down, we'll pull it out of rotation and replace it. And then we start just rotating. So that's an interesting point you bring up. Knowing your avatar, knowing where they sit, it could be an old school, it could be on digital, but then also what types of creatives do they respond to, and what type of copy do they respond to, and how long does that work? So they're going at some point going to become numb to it in a sense.
Yeah.
And how do you replicate the results of that with other content or with other creatives, whether it be old school, digital, whatever it is.
Yeah. One of the best things we ever did, especially with our ideal patients, once we identified who they were, we would then send them a survey to find out what they read, what they listened to, where did they hang out. There were 5 basic questions, but we used to actually send it as a old school sheet of paper in the mail with a self-addressed envelope so they could post it back to us, with a $2 scratchy, like a little lotto card thing, with a cover letter that just said, we've identified you as one of our ideal patients. Can you please fill in the survey? Enclosed as a $2 scratchy. If you happen to win $25,000 and you feel guilty, by all means, you can give us half if it makes you feel better, or you can come and spend as much of it here as you want. We used to get back over 90% every single time we sent them out, because it just worked.
We do something very similar over email, but we're incentivizing them to do it, and it's less about them giving you information and you giving them something that could be make their experience with you a lot more enjoyable. In your case, it was the chance to win $25,000. And then you had I think it's brilliant, you had a call to action for them to come back and spend it with you.
Yeah. But it'd be funny, we get the survey back and every now and then it'd have PS, I won $100 and I'm keeping it all. There'd be just be some, or can you send me another $2 scratchy? The one you sent me was a dud. We used to get some really, really funny messages, but we also we could track who we'd sent them to, and we would track who didn't send them back. And then we would actually put all those patients together and say, okay, what is it about these people that didn't send them back? Because there's something about them that we thought they were our ideal client, but maybe they weren't. And I think all that information is really important.
It is, and I think you just proved it's relatively easy to get. You can really just ask for it and people will give it to you. Now, sometimes you have to ask for it in a certain way, and what you were doing seemed to be working. And so just finding the right way to ask is really the best way you can. And then having an assumption, you had this assumption that these people were your ideal client. They didn't send it back. And then you started studying, well, why didn't they send it back? If 90% of our assumption is correct, what does this 10% say? And that allows you, sort of like the anti-avatar, to start figuring out, well, they sort of look and feel like it, but really they're not. And
they're really vampires.
Now we can optimize. Yeah. They're just in there to suck everything out of your business.
But what was interesting, doing that. So when you asked them, what radio station do you listen to? And it was surprising how many of them all listen to the same radio station. And then you said, are you a member of any social or sporting club, and more than 50% of them were a member of the golf club. And you went, okay, where do we need to be? So then we would
Yeah.
we would sponsor, whenever there was a golf day on, we would sponsor a buggy. Well, we'd get 2 buggies, 4 of us would go along. We'd dress up in costume, even if it wasn't fancy dress. And so that we stood out, and we would go around talking and networking with people. It was, getting that information back really helps you target where you're going to put your money.
You want to be where your clients and your buyers with the most frequency and the highest amount are going to be. There's a worksheet that I think we can provide in the show notes if that would be helpful.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Cool.
Anything that can add to, like, people listening to this now, anything that you have that you think, oh yeah, this would be beneficial, I'll just put it in the show notes and they can grab it. So when you were talking about $60,000 a month that you spend on digital advertising, where did you learn to do digital advertising? Or was it trial and error?
A lot of trial and error on my part. And now I have, thankfully, a team that is way better at digital advertising than I am.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of trial and error, and the targeting admittedly has become a lot harder. So in certain cases, we're actually testing out old school methods. And but it's not something that digital advertising is not something we're abandoning anytime soon, but it's definitely something that you have to play around with. I do hear a lot of, well, I tried digital advertising once and it didn't work for me, so I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
But most of the time is they spent a little bit of money and didn't target people correctly because they didn't know who their avatar was, and because they didn't know who their avatar was, they didn't write the right copy and they didn't pick the right images. And you don't think about everything that goes into writing an ad, even for something like Facebook. There's a lot of thought that goes into that, starting with the avatar. And knowing what your unique selling proposition is also helps going into that. But it is just trial and error. And you got to, I think in certain cases, be prepared to spend some money. It doesn't need to be a huge amount of money. I was testing stuff with, $20, $30 budgets per month and building it up. Now I think it's probably a little bit more than that, but you could still get away with spending just a couple $100, which you're not going to put an ad in a magazine or a newspaper for that anymore.
No, not even close.
To just test some stuff. And we also use social media organically when people could still see stuff that you posted on a Facebook page.
Yeah. That was a while ago.
We used to test, the creatives that we would then put in the ads. And you can still do that on things like Instagram that get more organic engagement. But, come up with your avatar, come up with the concept, do some testing on, emails or whatnot, and then test in ads. And then we also use some of our ads to test concepts that we want to test in emails too. So it kind of goes both ways there.
What's your thinking on somebody starting out in business, for example, and they heard that, should I just use a digital agency and just go and throw a couple of $1,000 at them and get them to do it for me? Or are they better to sit back and put the time and energy in and try and learn it themselves? Because no one would know their business better than they would, or their social media activity. Because I did hear someone once where somebody said, your social media, you should always be looking after it yourself, not outsourcing that.
Yeah, I think somebody starting out, it's really tempting to just go to a agency. A lot of agency, if that's what you want to do and you want to pass it off, it's a little bit easier to pass off ads than it is social media. Yeah. But you kind of have to look at what the results are that agency is getting and do your due diligence on them. A lot of agencies are structured to increase spend because they're compensated by a percentage of your spend rather than increase the result of the conversion. And they could pump thousands of leads into your pipeline, or customer journey, whatever you want to call it, but they may not be your avatar and they may be the wrong lead. So just kind of, I would say at the very least, if you're going to go the agency route, you need to have a really solid understanding of your avatar and you need to have a really solid basic understanding of how to even run an ad, just to understand when they're talking to you, what they're saying and the results that they're getting. If you can interpret those and you know that they're getting you your avatar and it's producing sales on the back end and it's not just flooding you with leads
Yeah.
that aren't who you want, then I think the agency has a place. But I think starting out, you definitely need to have a really good understanding of just avatar and digital ads in general before you go to an agency. And there's some great courses that are pretty inexpensive on running ads.
Okay. Any come to mind that people could look up, or just Google it?
You can just Google them, but Digital Marketer has a series of certifications. I think there's one on paid traffic. I think they call it the Paid Traffic Mastery certification. And that's a pretty good baseline. And they do update those every year, I think, or sometimes more often. So that's a really good trustworthy source to go to for really they have a lot of different certifications, but definitely the paid traffic, they know what they're doing there.
Okay, that's cool. So the other part of your presentation, we spoke a lot about the ideal patient, client, customer, and then it moved on to unique selling proposition, USP, and how what you put there. So can you explain what a USP is? If somebody goes, okay, Tyson, what's a USP? Aren't they a postal service?
Yeah.
Oh, it's UPS.
I would say the UPS or here the USPS.
Yeah.
I think the best way to distill it down is, why would your avatar want to buy from you and not a competitor?
So that's the question.
That's the question that you want to answer. And that's surprising. There's you just kind of think, oh, that's a pretty easy question to answer, but it's surprisingly in certain cases pretty difficult. And
just saying you're better is not the answer.
It's never the answer. So just to kind of give you an example of one, M&Ms, like the little candy, is the milk chocolate that melts in your mouth, not in your hand. So they were competing, when they came up with that, they were competing with all of these different types of candies.
Smarties used to be the thing, but they melted in your hand.
Yeah.
If you held on to them too long, you ended up with all these colored dots all over your hand.
Mm-hmm. And you could hold on to M&Ms for a pretty long while and them not melt. So that was unique. They could, it was something that they did well that their competitor really didn't. And they kind of ignored the other piece, which is, it's like milk chocolate. Pretty much anybody could make milk chocolate that tastes good.
Yeah.
So nobody really cares about that. What does the consumer want? They know what the problem, they knew who their consumer was, and they knew the problems that they faced. And they knew that they did this one thing way better. And so they figured out, what do they want and what's the problem that we're solving, and what do we do really well? And that's what's unique. And that's why that person would buy from us.
So people got to look at their own business, look at who their avatar is, find out what do their avatar want, and then what problem can I solve, and then try and put that into a short phrase that when people read that phrase, they go, yep, that's the business I want to use.
Mm-hmm. And there are some more obscure ones. So saddleback leather, I think, is an example I used.
This is brilliant. I love this one. I really love this one. Let it rip.
It's really good. So saddleback leather is a basic leather company. They make jackets and things like that. And their unique selling proposition is they'll fight over it when you're dead.
I said that to somebody the other day, and I can't remember who I was talking to, and they cracked up laughing. They went, that is so good. Again, so their product is that good that when you die, they're not caring about anything else. They want your jacket, or they want your bag.
They know that whoever their avatar is, I'm willing to bet there's a phrase similar to this scrawled somewhere, that they're thinking or they're thinking about legacy. So what is the legacy or something that they're leaving behind for everybody else? And then so they're taking that kind of thought process and that feeling that their avatar has and converting it and understanding, hey, we make really good leather jackets that outlive our customers. And this customer is really interested and really conscious about their legacy. And let's combine those two. And that's kind of the overlap. If you drew a Venn diagram of what does my customer want and the problem that they're trying to solve, and what do we do really well.
Yeah.
That sits right in the middle of that Venn diagram.
So, and you're going to give me a copy of your Venn diagram as well, aren't you, that we can put in the show notes?
Yep.
So explain what's in the Venn diagram. So if people are just listening to this at the moment, they're going, oh, okay, what's in the 3 circles?
Yeah, so there's it's a 3-circle Venn diagram. And then the top circle, it's what you do really well. In the circle sort of off to the left, it's what does the consumer want. And then in the bottom circle, the main circle, it's what your competitor does well. And so the overlap, which we just discussed, which is what do I do well and what does the consumer want, that's where your unique selling proposition is. That's the point of difference. Where what the competitor does well and what the consumer wants overlap, just those 2 circles, that's where you're always going to lose. If your competitor is doing something better than you are and it's what the consumer wants, unless you can do that better than your competitor, you're going to lose there.
Okay.
And then where your brand overlaps, what your brand does well or what you do well overlaps with what your competitor does well. No one really cares about that. So going back to the M&M example, Smarties and M&Ms are both probably pretty delicious milk chocolate.
Yeah.
They're both colored little candies. They do that pretty well, but do people really care one way or the other?
So if M&Ms were going, hey, we're milk chocolate with pretty colors, people go, well, so are Smarties. You're not solving any problem. Who cares? And people are creatures of habit, so you tend to, something new might come out, you'll use it, but then at habit you'll fall back to the other product if there's no reason for you to want to buy the other product.
Yep. And then the middle circle or the middle piece where everything overlaps is risky. So you could compete there and you could have a unique selling proposition there, but it's a lot riskier. You have to use a lot more emotion and you have to be a lot more innovative than your competitor is to sell in that area.
And risky in what way though? Is it just you don't know? Is it like a black hole? You don't know what's going to happen once you get in there?
Yeah, because your competitor, you both do this thing really well, and it's something that both of your consumers really want. But that's it's sort of going back to the M&M example. If there was something that they both did really well, like they both had the same colors or one had slightly different colors, does that really matter? You could probably start selling over that, or if your brand had more loyalty over that, it could work. But generally, somebody is going to go with, well, what's the which brand solves the problem better?
Yeah, so you better just stick in your safe spot.
That's where the money is going to be made, is in that safe spot. Not that you can't make money in that kind of no man's zone, but you're just going to have to way outperform or outspend your competitors to actually sell there, rather than just identifying where am I really good and what does my competitor not do. Okay,
so your unique selling proposition, do some people look at that and they go, oh, that's the same thing as a tagline? So they can be interchangeable, sort of?
In some cases, it is a tagline. In other cases, you may not necessarily put it on your website or put it all over your branding, but it has to be the driver behind the marketing and the copy and the images that you select. Or I should say one of the drivers. But I would say it's not something that you just kind of sit down and come up with. It might be, but most of the time there's a thought process that happens, and it could be a quite extensive thought process that goes into it. And so sometimes, as you're testing out unique selling propositions, you may not throw that on your website like Saddleback Leather does. I think it's they're front and center on their homepage of their website. But I think one that may not be super well known is Milk Duds. I don't know if there's a different name for them in Australia, but it's the kind of the caramel candy covered in chocolate.
Yeah, I saw them when I was in the States last time. Milk Duds.
Milk Duds.
Duds. I think I have brought. I don't know if we have them over here or not. I've just seen them over there that many times. I'm just familiar with Milk Duds. I love the name. I just love the name, Milk Duds.
But it's their unique selling proposition was long lasting candy, and I don't think I've ever seen that on a milk. How do you say it?
Milk
Milk
duds.
duds
Yeah.
box. Like that's not something that they really put out there, but it was the driving force behind how they created their advertising campaigns and their marketing campaigns, which was we have a lot of people enjoying movies. They started selling milk duds when movie theaters became really popular here in the States, and people were eating other candy, and they would have to go outside the movie theater to get more candy or more popcorn, whatever it is that they want. And so they came up with their unique selling proposition was people don't want to miss movies, and our candy lasts a really long time because it takes forever to chew it because it's like a sticky caramel.
Yeah, that
So
makes
their
sense.
unique selling proposition was long lasting candy. And after they came up with that and used that along with their avatar to drive decisions in the rest of the marketing and the advertising, they actually sold more milk duds in a 1 quarter period, in a 3 month period, than they had ever before. So just making these little tweaks and understanding how to implement something like a unique selling proposition in your marketing, advertising, and sales can be a real game changer. I think Avis was another example that I used at
Yeah,
the
I like
at the
this one
event.
too.
Their unique selling proposition, they didn't have one before, and they had 11% market share in the car rental market. And their unique selling proposition became, we're number two, we try harder. And they use that to dictate what they do in marketing, advertising, and sales. And I think even probably company culture, they had people that were just friendlier than their top competitors. And they went from 11% market share to 35% market share in, I think, under 4 years.
Well, that's a big jump.
It was a huge jump.
So the thing is once you have the USP, it's not just that you can use it in your marketing, but it's something you use in the culture of growing your business. So if somebody's answering the phone and, yeah, we're number two, we try harder, then that's the culture you're going to get through to the person who's on the phone. You must try harder. It's not just hang up on them if it starts getting a little bit tough.
Exactly. Another example, and this is a probably a more recent one, is the Save the Bros,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
it was pretty interesting. And let me actually bring up the stats, and anybody can go look this up. It was a company called Organic Valley, which is just a milk company here in the U.S. And they wanted to get into, or I think they actually had a protein shake product, like a pre-bottled protein shake, but they weren't selling it. So their unique selling proposition became basically, I don't remember the phrase they used, but get your protein without all of the dangerous chemicals that are in normal proteins, like just your average protein shakes.
Yeah.
And they used that to move the marketing and advertising and sales in a totally different direction than it would have gone without that thought process. And then I think we can include the results of that in the show notes. I don't have them right in front of me, but it was a pretty dramatic. The campaign they built around that had pretty dramatic results for them.
Okay. It's like I remember when you were talking about, and not only that, they then brought humor into their advertising as well, with the Save the Bros, yeah, and all these videos of these like muscle-bound people just doing some silly things, but and sort of saying everybody knows a bro that that is probably drinking bad protein. Put them onto the good protein.
And that's a result of they understood what their unique selling proposition was, and they knew who their avatar was there. They knew that bros kind of are generally goofy people. I don't want to stereotype bros here, but
yeah, in case there's a bro
generally,
listening.
generally pretty goofy people. And a lot of them, especially probably more younger millennial bros, are becoming more health conscious. And it was brilliant what they did, because talking about knowing where your audience is, they actually created a Twitter piece of software for Twitter where you could put in somebody's Twitter handle and it would send that person anonymously a coupon from the I think they called it the Brononymous hotline.
Bro anonymous. I love it when they come up with a concept and they slightly twist it.
Yeah.
I got this podiatry friend, Ted, and he does a lot of education stuff. So it's always Teducation, and he just uses the word TED in all these different areas, which I think is actually quite funny. So, Alex, if people want to reach out and connect with you in some way, LinkedIn is probably the best way.
LinkedIn is the best way to get in touch with me. I'm pretty active as far as responding to messages there. I may not post as much as I should, but you can always reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Okay, no, that's great. And I'll put a link in the show notes as well so people can stalk you while you're sleeping at night, which is always one of my favorite activities to do. And we were talking just before we came on about business black ops. And if people heard us mention that at the beginning, can you give a little bit of information what business black ops is? Because I've been 5 years in a row now, and I'm already booked. It's already in my diary for next year.
Well, that's good to hear. It started out as an event in a series where just generally a mastermind event. And it's a great group of people that come every single year. That's where we met. And you like to tell people it took me 3 years to talk to you, but I don't know if that's true.
No, you spoke to me the first year. You said, yeah, how you doing? Yeah, it was but you were quietly sitting in the back of the room. You were doing a lot more at the back of the room organising stuff, whereas the last few years you'd be more at the front of the room, sort of more participation.
I would say so, but it started out as an event, and now we publish, which you've had my dad on multiple times, I think.
Yeah, he's a serial offender on the show. That's Dave
Nice.
Freeze, in case anybody was wondering, and he's due to come back on again in a couple of weeks.
Okay, great. So maybe he'll talk about it some more, but
Yeah.
We publish a newsletter every single month. It generally, I don't know how long, a lot of them are 30 plus pages per issue.
It's like a small novel.
Yeah, they're just huge amounts of information, but it's very actionable. So he breaks it down into, pieces that are very consumable, and then you can go and immediately take action on it if it applies to you. So there's a monthly newsletter, and then we're building out, which it exists right now, but we're continuing to build it out more and more, a membership site where you can get access to monthly coaching calls, back issues of the newsletter, and then access to smaller group events throughout the year that are generally here in the US that focus around a particular topic. So for instance, we did an event back in this past February, on protecting the legacy of the business.
Yeah.
And so that involved how do you protect intellectual property from the main core business, and how do you acquire certain businesses that can add value, and how do you build value to either pass the business on, or sell it. So there's a lot of smaller elite events like that. There's one coming up in November where I think they will be, I can't remember the exact topic. We're bringing in Chase Hughes, which he's I think was a Navy SEAL, is one of the foremost experts on interrogation and just communication skills in general. So there's a lot of different small events throughout the year. And then there's another big event in October that you go to every year.
Which
and then
I absolutely love. It is so good.
It's so fun. And I think you come out of that event, at least I do. I come out of that event every year with just something that I go and implement, and it changes our marketing dramatically. It could be a client's marketing. It could be what I'm doing with Credit Suite right now, but it's always something huge and dramatic that comes out of that. And it could just be one thing. So for instance, the content wheel that we reviewed at this year's event, implementing that currently with my social media manager and our content manager at Credit Suite. And so far it's just been dramatic, the results that we're seeing from that, because we were putting out 60 pieces of content a month in some cases. But a lot of it didn't have a purpose or a drive behind it. And so you can put out this, or the right purpose for it.
Yeah.
And so you can put out content and it it can sit there. But if it doesn't have a purpose and we don't know how to utilize it and share it on social media and share it in other places, it's sort of, we're just spinning our wheels. So that one thing is going to dramatically change how our entire content department at a Inc. 5000 company works. So I think there's definitely a lot of value behind business black ops, and I'm not just saying that because I'm related to my dad,
related to the guy. Yeah. Well, you didn't choose that either.
No.
I'm sure a lot of people have looked at you sometimes and gone, "Poor Alex." You didn't choose Dave because he's a very interesting guy. And what's interesting about business black ops, people have said to me, "Oh, this is your 5th year you've gone. Are you learning something every time?" I went, "Every year it gets better than it was the year before." And even though we touch on a few things which are very similar, every time I hear it, I go, "Oh, maybe I might actually hear it this year."
Yeah. It's kind of like reading a book. You reread books and you learn something new every time you reread it. It's just, your brain is just ready for it at that point. And I think that's kind of how it is with that event every year. It just kind of, you're thinking slightly differently than the year before. Something might have happened in your business or practice or personally, and that just opens up a totally new way of looking at something.
And I'm the only Australian that attends at the moment.
Yeah, I think you should bring some friends over.
Yeah, I do have a couple of people that are thinking about it. And then we've got Brian Slater, who is from the UK, but he lives in America now, so he doesn't count.
Mm-hmm. No, he's lived there for a while now.
Even though he still sounds like he's just climbed off the boat from the UK, doesn't he? He
does.
He has not lost his accent one little bit.
No. But yeah, I don't know if that's on purpose, like if he practices every day or something.
Yeah, he might. Or me mum. Yeah, he might. He might actually. But I suppose his wife is from the UK. Is she from America?
You know what? I don't remember. Sorry, Brian.
Yeah, sorry, Brian. We should pay more attention. So if people want to know more about Business Black Ops, they should just call Lisa. I've got the number in front of me, which this is the US number, 610-933-8069. So that will be in the show notes. So if you're driving at the moment, don't grab a pen and try and write this down. I don't want to be the cause of an accident. And the other thing is you mentioned the company name a few times, Credit Suite. And that's all about helping people just get their credit sorted out so they can do more.
It's on the business side. So we're helping
business side of things.
Yeah, businesses understand if they're fundable, and it's just for US based businesses. So we help them understand if they're fundable, meaning I think there's over 125 aspects that underwriters are looking at, and they're not telling the business owner what they look at on a particular time, or if you get denied, why you're getting denied. They don't tell you any of that. So we help businesses understand all of that and actually fix issues with that before they even go in to get financing or funding for their business. And then we also help them establish a business credit profile for the business that's separate from them personally. And then also help them get hard financing like loans if that's something that they want to accomplish.
So if people want to know more, they just Google Credit Suite and it'll turn up.
Credit Suite, SUITE.
Okay, that's
SWEET.
Cool. Okay, so before we wrap up, have you got any final parting words to somebody that's listening to this now? We spoke about the knowing your avatar, developing a USP based off that. Have you got any final tips to someone listening to this right now so that they can go, okay, thank you very much, Alex?
I would say don't be afraid to test. We're constantly testing new stuff and testing our USP if that works or if it doesn't work, or how it plays off in how we sell and market. So it's always good to test and fail and learn from that failure, especially if it's a small failure. It's easier to come back from, but failure is just an amazing learning opportunity. And we do it all the time at Credit Suite. We have a big budget that we can play around with, thankfully.
Yeah.
But you don't need a big budget to test. So you can come up with some pretty creative ways to find out if your avatar is working, if your unique selling proposition is working, and then also being able to test ads off of that.
Okay. That is great parting words. And as you were saying that, I'm thinking, yeah, that's given me a few ideas as well. So, Alex, I want to thank you for coming on It's No Secret with Dr. T. This has been fun, and thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a blast.
Well, I hope you enjoyed listening to Alex Fries today as much as I enjoyed having this conversation with him. And if you haven't given a lot of thought to who is your avatar, whether it's patient, customer, or client, really sit down and think about it, because the sooner you can get clearer on who your avatar is, the clearer the rest of your marketing, or the easier the rest of your marketing becomes. And then you start speaking just the one language, and it's easier to push that one message. And it also then ties in with your unique selling proposition, as Alex explained. So give it a lot of thought. Sit down, think about your avatar, and start writing it down. If you've never done it before, now is a perfect time to start. And if you're just starting out in business, sit down, work out your avatar, and then start directing your marketing to that perfect person. And don't be afraid that you're going to miss out on other people. If you're targeting just one person, I'll guarantee you're still going to see other people outside of that. You're not going to lose people. But what you will do is attract more of the people that you want and less of the people that you don't want. So just take that all on board and start applying it. Before I go, just want to mention, if you haven't read my book, It's No Secret There's Money in Small Business, grab yourself a copy. You can order it off my website, tysonfranklin.com, if you live in Australia. If you live overseas, just go to Amazon or wherever you prefer to buy your books. Okay, so that's pretty much for me this week. Look after yourself, look after your family, and I will talk to you again next week. Bye for now.